Hello and welcome to ThursdAI. This is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases. It's still so fun to say because it's new, but I'll keep just saying this. And today I come to you from San Francisco in one of the hotels as I conclude my very brief trip to here that I came out for a specific AI event with open source that I got invited by the open source community. And in the middle of me flying here, Google dropped Gemini on us. So we actually recorded this podcast episode from latentspace podcast new studio. So shout out Swyx and Alessio for letting me crash their studio and test it out. And also Swyx joined us, which was really, really fun. And we also got joined in Meetspace with LDJ, who often co-hosts ThursdAI, and Shrumanik, who's been once or twice, our friend from Germany. It was really cool because it was a mix between kind of a local folks. We're sitting 4 people in the room talking and looking at each other, which is new for ThursdAI, but also folks over the Twitter sphere. Nisten and Pharrell and Umesh and Akshay and some great friends of ThursdAI all joined as we talked about basically these 2 things: the Gemini release. We talked about Mamba as well, which is very interesting, and we talked about the open source AI event. We also talked a little bit about ModCon from Modular that happened also in San Francisco also this week. So it was a great conversation. However, there's a little bit of a technical difficulty in the beginning. So the beginning of the podcast is not actually the beginning of when we started to talk. There was a few Wi-Fi issues, and hopefully I was by the time I sorted them, we're already in the middle of the conversation. So at first you'll hear me start, but I basically kind of restarted this. I really enjoyed my time here in San Francisco. I took a bunch of Waymo rides for the first time. I got approved for Waymo. I met incredible people, very talented people, and this is basically a trip summary for you of everything that I experienced in a very brief time. So with that, I give you ThursdAI December 7th, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's start this again. Google finally told us, answered the question, like, where's Google? And they released Gemini. Gemini has been there for a while. Apparently, they were waiting for some stuff. Unnamed sources told me that, like, obviously they've been training and people have been seeing Gemini, but they haven't released it for a while. And so yesterday they released a bunch of stuff. A lot of this is a blog post and a cool video that we're going to talk about the video as well. They have shown that Gemini, at least Gemini Ultra, beats GPT-4 on a bunch of benchmarks. And we're going to talk about those benchmarks as well. They showed a cool multimodal video and multimodal capabilities. We knew about those as well, right? We knew about the multimodality that's coming. And we've talked about multimodal 2024 being the kind of the year of multimodal. They announced kind of a 3 model setup. There's Gemini Ultra, which is like not yet here. There's Gemini Pro, which is now available to everyone in Bard, and a little mini model for kind of on-device inferencing, which is something cool. We've talked about on-device multiple times as well on ThursdAI. And so I guess I'll go around the room and just kind of get like this initial reaction. As you guys know, much of this AI thing is vibes based. Like we sometimes it's really hard to evaluate on benchmarks, on evaluations, and a lot of the times like we know what's good or what it's not that good based on kind of how the community reacts and how things react. So I guess I'll go around the room. We'll do digital first, maybe Nisten and then educated if you guys want to go, and then we're going to talk about here with Luigi and Shrumanik.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nitin Tahiri. I'm a software developer in Toronto. I currently do open source research along with Pharrell here. Previously, I worked on the team that built Dr. Gupta, the first Dr. AI wrapper on the market. And now recently we released about a month ago Baklava, one of the first good open source vision models. There's a couple more now. And I'm usually, I've been in these rooms since March, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Nisten, you got muted a little bit. So what's your take on Gemini, dude?
Well, I haven't tried it, so I think the model is probably fine. there's just a lot of frustration over the years that has been building up with people seeing many promises and very flashy demos from Google products. And now you see that a little bit culminating with this release that people are fed up with marketing speak and they just want like the actual facts because the products, the model's probably pretty impressive how close it comes. But again, there's a lot of questions with general availability, stuff like Bard is not even available in Canada yet, not even the first version. We ended up making our own open source Bard at home. So yeah, I think the model is probably going to be fine. It's just the miscommunications and the marketing that people are frustrated with, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The kind of the vibey feeling that I get, at least from the ecosphere on Twitter, is that okay, Google yet again announced something that's like that's like a wait list. However, they did give us a few models, right? So the medium model, the Gemini Pro model, which is still fairly impressive on the MMLU score. I think it's like 79 on the MMLU. And previously what we had in Bard was Palm and some versions of Palm, and they came out with Palm a while ago, and we knew that the Gemini is coming. And even that is kind of like an impressive bump. So I don't know if you had a chance to play. Oh, so you said it's not available in Canada yet, so you haven't had the chance to play with this. I want to hear from Educated. Raj, if you wanna unmute and tell us a little bit about what you're feeling, what you're hearing from. What's your reaction to Gemini's release? Have you been waiting for this? I know you're in the other ecosphere. You guys using Azure for a while, so let me know what you thought about it.
Yeah, certainly. So, I'm known as Raj, but my name is Umesh. I'm based in London and primarily working in enterprise applications. We are trying to make large language models basically time aware or temporally aware as they are not aware. So that's our research area, but we work on multiple cloud systems basically. So we employ Azure OpenAI APIs to access OpenAI, but we are also on GCP. So actually, I took a chance to talk to GCP guys that we are interacting with here for some of the application pipelines that we use on their Vertex AI and the model garden, basically. So that's what we employ. And we could actually, force them a little bit to say that, okay, we are developing a new pipeline. So you have to give us some visibility on what is coming up. And apparently, it looks like in internal communication, the what we are excited about is the 13th of December when they are going to open up the API for the development. So that's a milestone, and hopefully, if they keep that milestone, then that's going to be great. So that's what we are looking at. As far as Gemini itself, the model is concerned, so in the UK, once again, like large part, like we tried from different places and everything. So we are still getting Palm 2 model. We are still not getting Gemini on quite a few instances. So that's very weird. Like they're employing Palm 2, and I posted it on my timeline as well as the snapshot, like where it shows Palm 2 in front. And when I spoke to a few people like who are kind of, let's say, influencers in this area in social media, and they were actually trashing down Gemini, saying Bard is still giving the same response and everything, but then they realized that it was actually Palm 2 model, so they were not actually accessing Gemini. So that's something that everybody should be aware of, that they should be looking for whether they are really accessing Gemini or it's just Palm 2. So, but overall, I'm really excited about that, as everybody I think here is. But the one thing that I'm really excited about is the nano model or the mono model, basically. So that's where I think it's going to be massive kind of thing, because it's going to be a new Android wrapper around a model. So that is something unique. So the model will be at the core of Android system that will be pushed out to all the phones. And then basically what happens is that you have your local AI. And what I understood from Google engineers here based in London is that that model will be working kind of in conjunction with Gemini Ultra. So that's Ultra is basically where Google Cloud is going to be powered. So most of the APIs will be transferred to Ultra at the beginning of 2024. So right now, as when they open up APIs on 13th of December, they will go to the Pro model, but then they will be transferred slowly to Ultra model. And then what will happen is that this model which you have in your phone will actually talk to Ultra for any kind of extra inference required or complex, reasoning or task kind of thing. It will talk to Ultra. And the model itself will use the information that is there in your phone to work as kind of your co-pilot or assistant. So that I think is very, very powerful because what Android is on 70% of the phones in the world. And imagine like this model getting pushed to all these phones and every person walking in the street from Vietnam to India to US having, their own AI in their hands. So that's the part which is very exciting. And I think that's the architecture that I'm really, really excited by.
Thank you, Umesh. Thank you. I want to follow up on this thing you just said. Like the APIs are going to get released in, you said, a week or something, but it's going to be just the Pro stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what they told us, the GCP engineer, and they're quite senior level guys in GCP in London, and what they told us is that the 13th of December release is primarily going to be rolled out on Ultra model. So on Pro model, and then they will switch to Ultra because Ultra, they need to leverage, like the reason that it is delayed because they wanted to actually release Ultra. So if you remember the October event that was publicized and then they canceled it and Google's stock dropped by 10% and everything. So that was because they wanted to release Ultra first. And then what they did is they changed the configuration and they said, okay, we'll go ahead with Pro so that we have something in the market to make market happy and say that Google is still relevant in this field. And then we will go for Ultra. So that's what happened in the background, actually.
Oh wow, awesome! All right, folks, I want to say hi also to Swyx, who just joined us, who is hosting us. Can you guys hear Swyx? Hopefully, not from his
we
account.
We have not tested this.
Yeah, this is a new setup, real quick. But I think we're good. Swyx, we finally got Gemini. What initial thoughts on the release?
Oh God, sorry. So I was at a call earlier, so I don't know what you guys already discussed.
No worries. What your initial thoughts we didn't discuss for sure. So.
I mean, yeah. So like, it's a good model, but it's very, very, very unclear if it's actually GPT-4 level.
Yeah.
It's it's not better than GPT-4 like they're claiming, and that intellectual dishonesty is concerning coming out of Google. Like just say it's Gemini, just say it's like it's okay, it's not as good as GPT-4. Like don't do this 32 shot versus 5 shot thing. That's just embarrassing. Don't do this like heavily edited video that is probably not real.
So let's talk about that real quick, because I definitely saw the video and I was like blown away because like it was super cool. It's a person pointing at things, talking to things. It's like basically in order to get to that level of performance, you need real life video understanding, and you need like a multimodal or fully multimodal model that understands video.
To get to this level of performance, you need Adobe Premiere, you need After Effects, you need a very good Hollywood style video editor. Yeah, and a lot of post-processing.
So let's actually kind of talk about this, because like many people did see, and I think a lot of the news reporting in this as well, they saw this video and kind of, oh, this is like what Gemini does. It's not what Gemini does.
Yeah.
It's not what Gemini does. And how we know it's not what Gemini does is because there was a Google developer blog that came out and showed how they kind of did this, right? And I don't know if you guys had a chance to like read this Google developer blog. They actually showed that it's text and images in sequence, and they're asking Gemini Ultra, I guess, not Pro, that we got, just questions based on the sequence of images, and then a very nice editing, like I said, Premiere or whatever Google uses, probably not Premiere, I don't know what Google uses, cut it, or I guess recorded that video of a person interacting and kind of splice this thing together, which does seem like it was done on purpose. But we know for a fact that like that's not how smooth Ultra is going to be. That's not the UI.
Yeah.
Yes, and we want it to be the UI, right? Like that's the whole point.
Yeah, we want many things, but we can't have a lot of things. It's just like I think I think Tior Taxis, I don't know what his real name is, may have the best summary. It's very much like, like they are behind in the news cycle. Everyone keeps making Gemini jokes every week. They wanted to just tell people like, hey, like we have a thing and we're shipping it, and it's not available yet, but we're shipping it, which is good progress. Like it's really like honestly, like hats off to them. Like they're doing hard and important work. But like I feel like they could have just been more upfront about where they are at, and everyone will be okay with it. Like, it doesn't have to be the best at everything all the time, you know. Like,
Yeah.
So I mean that. You know, I hope I'm not too like down on them. Like, I think it's actually really good to have more alternatives to OpenAI and to have more research labs like doing really frontier work. And you know, I'm looking forward to Ultra when it comes out.
Yeah, and which we still don't know when it is, right? They said early 24,
Yeah,
as far as I'm
yeah,
concerned,
take them at their word.
and we're gonna take them at the word. At least there's something, like, right? We've
Exactly.
been waiting for
Exactly.
um
Cannot complain too much.
cannot complain too much. So here's the positive, as I kind of collected them from the Twitter sphere, right? There is an alternative to OpenAI, a big alternative. Elon Musk with XAI always talk about a duopoly. There's OpenAI with Microsoft, and there's Google. And where's Google? And Google is now here, and they're showing a good performance, at least on paper. Even though it's a little bit of dishonest into our AI Twitter sphere. The 32. Let's talk about the 32 real quick. Google showed us that they're beating GPT-4 on MMLU score, which is a benchmark from OpenAI. Or actually, no, MMLU is not from OpenAI, Luigi, right?
I don't think so, but
No.
it is a very common popular benchmark.
Common public benchmark. Move my closer. And so they're showing that Gemini Ultra is achieving an unprecedented, I think, so far, 90.04% on this MMLU benchmark, which a lot of models use. And then where they show that like they're doing this with COT32. Luigi, could you walk us through like what COT32 means and how it like applies to the testing?
It can kind of mean a lot of things. I'm not sure exactly what they're referencing in this context, honestly, but I think usually 32 might mean something like 32 shot, and that can kind of be interpreted in different ways. Sometimes it typically is sometimes like 32 shot, meaning they kind of maybe give it 32 examples of ways that it can be answered before it answers it, or sometimes in other cases they might do something like giving it 32 chances to answer and then picking the best one out of those. And then COT typically just means chain of thought. I'm not exactly sure if Swyx or others wants to shine light on more specifically what it might mean.
So they actually publish in the paper what they mean by COT,
Okay.
and so like Jeff Dean. For those who actually want technical detail, Jeff Dean probably had the best thread from Google that is not marketing.
Yeah, Jeff Dean is the guy who leads stuff over there. Correct?
Yeah, I think he's still currently head of Google Brain.
Yeah.
Trying to get him on my pod. We'll I don't
Shout
know.
out Jeff
I
Dean.
don't know if he does podcasts. Yeah,
If
I don't think I've ever heard him.
If
on
you
a
hear
podcast.
this and you want to come to latentspace, it's a cool new studio that you
yeah,
can
it was
join.
really, really well. I mean, his thread is the most informative and precise, and people actually challenged him like, "Hey, dude, like, what is this 32 versus 5?" And he was like, "Yeah, we came up with a new form of few shot prompting that we wanted to show off, and we felt this better represents how you should benchmark models. And obviously, like, they're very serious in doing real science as well. So they have this term of uncertainty routing for 32 shot. I don't know if you guys have discussed this or
No.
talked in a paper.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So like, so basically, it is the second kind of few shot prompting, and I don't like that. You know, like that's like spending 32 times the number of tokens in order to find one right answer. And like, you can get it wrong 31 times, but if you get it right once, it still counts as a win. And like that's a little bit not what we expect as users.
Yeah.
But okay, I mean, you know, so at least they compare like for like, because they also called GPT-4V with the same same methods.
Yeah.
And on their methods they win. On the GPT on the standard 5-shot prompting, GPT-4 wins.
GPT-4 gets 86.4, and Gemini Ultra.
Yeah.
I don't know who did they test this, and then they posted this in the paper, but not in the blog post, correct?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the trick, the sleight of hands behind the scenes.
Yeah. There's a very funny meme somebody tweeted about, like, hey, I fixed the slide for you, and then one slide is like the number go up, and the other slide the number go down. It was just really funny. Which is all to say, like, these giant benchmarks like MMLU. By the way, the author Dan Hendricks is on Twitter, very active on Twitter. You guys should just have him on. And another fun fact about Dan is that he's actually he's a safety researcher, even though he's synonymous with MMLU, which is kind of the gold standard benchmark for sort of like a AGI eval. there's a separate benchmark called AGI eval. Anyway, so I mean, I like this is great. Like basically, they're demonstrating that they're of the same quality. I just wish that they didn't make such a heavy claim on it. It should be one of many results. On a panel of results, they seem to do well. Particularly by the way in the multimodal stuff, which I think you were the first one that flagged it to me that they slashed the word error rate on Whisper by a third. So like all the multimodal stuff is great.
With the same model,
Yeah.
mind you, right? So like we know that Whisper came out. Whisper was like best of class, or at least it was best of class up until few days ago, I guess, and now the same model that does multimodality on input and output. It also draws some things.
Whisper is the best in class that you can use.
That you can use like
Gemini has a marketing video
for sure. That we can use.
Yeah.
I'm saying like in a world where the competitor to OpenAI, the biggest competitor, which is now Google, until Grok comes out, which by the way we probably should mention that at some point it comes out as well. I think today.
Oh, really?
Premium Plus users. I don't know if you pay for Premium Plus.
I paid for it, but they still haven't given me access. I'm on with Twitter support right now.
So you should get Grok today if you update your app something. Elon tweeted something because I think he wants to ride the news wave. I actually don't pay for Premium Plus. I should. So back to Gemini real quick. DJ, I wanted to hear your quick thoughts on this. I know you're busy like doing some open source stuff, but like quick thoughts from you, and then we can continue talking about like what this means.
Yeah,
and bring the mic closer to you a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully it's coming through good now.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I think I want to look more into the multimodality aspect of Gemini. Hold up real quick.
Swyx is taking a selfie. That's
Yeah.
what we're like.
I'm helping to
stuttering.
promote the Twitter space. So I realized I better take this now rather
Okay, you
than
want to
later.
take a better one real quick so I'm prepared?
Oh, okay, yeah. All right,
It's all
sorry.
good. All right, we're taking a selfie, everyone, because like we're here in actual meet space and not in digital space,
Nice.
which is new for us. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so Gemini.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've been waiting for it for a while.
So multimodality.
Yes.
With it, I need to look more into it that more. You said it's multimodal on the input and output. So
Yes.
is it able to actually speak to you as well?
So the multimodal on the output that I saw was the generation of images, and I don't know like what they use behind the scenes, but the generation of images that they show is pretty advanced. I think in their demo, even if you kind of excuse the theatrics about this, even if you excuse they took some images, the person provides it with an image of like two balls of yarn, and then asks for an image what it can do, and actually like shows like crocheted dolls from those yarn ball colors, right? So multimodal on the output, to me at least, from what we saw from their examples, means just image and text. Obviously in the demo they also like made sound, but we know that was likely fake because like we saw the text that it outputted. So I don't know if it's like multimodal on the output on the sound stuff.
Okay, yeah. I think the other notable thing, which I have to look into more as well, but the coding. So they created something called, I think it's called Alpha Code 2.
Yes.
And that's, I guess it seems to be a fine-tuned or augmented version of Gemini Ultra, I think it is, or Gemini Pro or Gemini Ultra. And from what I've heard, is significantly beating GPT-4 in coding abilities. I could be wrong on that, but just, I haven't seen the specific benchmarks yet. I was trying to kind of look for that on my phone, while you're talking a bit earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw some. Okay, so let's talk about Alpha Coder and
But,
folks.
I want to quickly say, let's just assume kind of the presentation was 100% real. Like, how would the model architecture kind of look like? Because you have streaming video input, which is real time, and then you have kind of the model responding to that real time streaming. So it has it's not vision, it's video.
It's video.
So what part of the demo, because maybe this is the one you guys are talking about, but I did see something where somebody's holding up objects and Gemini kind of in real time responding to it. But I mean, that is something, at least from what I saw, that is something we've already achieved with something like Baklava, and there's already real-time demos of people doing that with Baklava. You know what I'm talking about, Alex, with Farrell's model. So I'm not sure exactly what we're saying is not real, or
so yeah, that demo was the most kind of mind-blowingly explosive demo out of all of this, I believe. Besides the fact that we now have a model, or I guess Google now has a model behind the scenes that we don't have, but they have. That's GPT-4 level. There wasn't just such a thing. But besides that, the demo that went the most viral was that demo of a person pointing at things, and in real time he talks to the model while pointing at things. Like there's like a bunch of multimodalities things happen, and that requires, Dominic, like you asked, like that requires a real time video understanding. Now we saw some examples of open source multimodal stuff where you just take a webcam and then frame by frame it and then like feed those frames in and understand. That's not, I don't believe that that's real video understanding. I've seen some examples from 12 Labs. 12 Labs we've talked about also before. I think even
I think I've checked out their
yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
and they have actually kind of a video understanding model. I think they call it Pegasus. That's not open source, but they showed us some examples of like 12 Labs actually understanding video and the context of video in the full context. Yeah. So this would require video understanding, would require multimodality on voice. Voice, you don't have to be multimodal, right? You can do like a quick whisper, like instant whatever. You can like translate it to text. Multimodal on audio, I still have yet seen.
Okay, I think they did say that they trained on video, no? Or
they could have trained on video, but then only intake images. So that could be the case.
But then even with the baklava demo I was telling you about, which I think you've probably seen it. It's like periodically, like you said, feeding in images, let's say every 3 seconds or something. But I mean, I don't mean to be too, get into semantics, but ultimately video is just, a lot of images in a small amount of time.
So video is way more than just this. And the reason I know this is because the folks from 12 Labs who have a video model, they actually told me a few things that like you start with sequencing frame by frame, and then you quickly notice that like scene boundaries are not there, and then different like contexts are not there.
You understand like the
there's
what
audio
changes between frames.
There's audio as well, where where it's not only text. There's like let's say you see a video of an explosion, you have to hear the audio explosion. Like explosion happens in the background. So they explain a bunch of stuff. We'll do a deep dive with 12 Labs. I think I'm connected with them. Like we'll get them on Thursday for sure, because they told me that real time is coming, and so the demo that we just saw could be possible very soon with something like a real time at 12 Labs.
Yeah, that'd be hot. Yeah,
and that's gonna be super cool. So I do want to talk about kind of the implications for businesses, right? So the theme that I'm seeing on Twitter is that Gemini released, and they released a cool demo, and it improved Google's market position by a bunch, like 5%. I saw. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. And the whole thing is that it's not geared towards us, the AI geeks on Twitter, and like people who are waiting for Gemini to see something new. It's geared toward like mature enterprises on their platform, trusting that they have the TPUs to provide stability and security for whenever you need those GPUs, because Google is not going away. The board is not going to probably change its mind like super quick, like we just saw recently, right? So people, especially after the kind of the OpenAI stuff, businesses, real build businesses, and I think Umesh, you talked about this as well. They need kind of stability, they need options, and we're now having, even though it's still announced, it's still in waitlist, but like when in the line of sight, we now have for businesses a real alternative option, and I think that's kind of impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And what else about Gemini? So we talked about alpha code for just a little bit, but I do want to touch about alpha code because I think it was like hidden behind the scenes of the drama and everything. We've had quite a few coder models so far. DeepSeek, I think, is getting around, right, guys? Folks are nodding, but like DeepSeek, like as far as we know, is like one of the best performing open source ones.
And
alpha
you can
code.
run it on your Mac, like.
You can run DeepSeek on my Mac, yeah, of course. It's local and it's super cool. No, wait, so Gemini, sorry guys, sorry for the confusion. One thing that I forgot completely. One of the coolest demo that's actually a demo that I saw is Gemini writing and executing a PRD to create its own UI. And I don't know if you saw that. That was super cool. Okay, so the demo, I think it's hidden. It's not the main demo, and I wish it was, because actually there's a video of this, and that
there's actually 6 to 7 videos that weren't really on the landing page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of them was a person asking for, I want to say, recommendation or something like this, and then they have like a debugger view to the right, and they showed the model kind of thinking about whether or not it has enough context to provide the answer for this person. And then it's like, no, I don't have enough context. So it's like, okay, I should ask the person. The person like says, I need this and this. I think it was like planning a birthday or something. I can't remember. It was, and then and then the model, like, it was funny for me, wrote a PRD, a product requirement document, which is like something that product managers do, and something that engineers are like, I got PTSD from my developer days, like, oh, you PRD. So it wrote like a product requirements document, which we also know from agents that many agents execute like this. They like, okay, what's my plan? My plan is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to execute 1. I'm going to reflect on 1, right? Like the whole React and thing. And so this was built in as well. And then the beautiful thing is, I think it wrote Flutter code, something Google related, whatever. And they actually showed in the UI and on the fly UI based on that task. And that I thought was like, okay, like they should have shown this instead of like the parlor tricks and like the thing that they don't have, because on the fly UI, I think is going to be here, obviously. Like we've seen some initial thoughts about this from the recent kind of vision to UI stuff from the whiteboard people, right?
TL Draw.
Yeah, TL Draw. Thank you. And
I'm having him on tomorrow.
Oh yeah, they're coming.
I'm friends with Steve actually from before. So
shout out Steve and other folks from TL Draw who like broke our collective jaws and we're still collecting them from the floor. Yeah. But like on the fly UI, which they showed us like an example of. I think that's definitely the future. Like you're going to be talking to an AI. It can generate code. It can generate like it knows what you want. And so I think that demo actually like was very impressive for me because I haven't seen anything remotely close like this from OpenAI at least. Do you guys know of anything that like in ChatGPT that draws a UI for you? No, I don't think there is.
No, but
that's the closest.
I mean, but it should just be a tool. Like if you can call an API. That should be a tool. Like it's just code generation, right? It's not about drawing, right?
I don't know if it's just
it's just constrained output. But if you just implement some kind of constrained output, and then you'll have some standards over the UI. Yeah. You could do similar to how Bootstrap does all the borders and stuff, and then you could limit the AI's output within that constrained output. Yeah, that should be possible with functions and JSON grammar and constrained output. Like we should have that soon.
So I will say it's not like models capabilities, right? They did show like multi-step agentry thing happening in order to generate this UI. So it's not like the model can just like generate the UI, but they showed this as a concept. And definitely I'm expecting the open source community, I'm looking at some folks right now, I'm expecting the open source community to look at those demos, including the multimodal demo that we saw that blew away, and just say, you know what, Google, by the time you release Ultra, this is going to be an open source and we're going to have fun with it. So I think overall, I'm very happy with Gemini finally coming.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good that Google is showing up. It's good that they finally released it because we knew it's been there for a while, like behind the scenes. I think it's great for enterprises and big companies who want to like maybe an alternative. I think it's great from the perspective of shortage from NVIDIA and chips and everything because TPUs they have in abundance and they can offer their services. They probably can start undercutting OpenAI because OpenAI was like the big boss in town. And generally great. Alpha Coder, they also released behind the scenes. That seems kind of very interesting and dubious. One of the things about Alpha Coder that I saw was they're basically brute forcing their way to an answer. They're generating like millions of possible answers, choosing the top 50 candidates. And Alpha Coder, for folks who don't know, and again, if you don't know, please raise your hand. Let's talk about this. Alpha Coder is this very, very intense coding challenge where many like GPT-4 fails, I think 0 out of 10, or so like it goes 0 out of 10 for many of the questions there, and apparently Alpha Coder like gets to like 6 out of 10 or something, and it does this with generating like an insane amount of answers, which everybody who looks at those answers says it's not feasible, like just like commercially it's not feasible. You won't be able to like generate this much. But maybe for now it's not feasible. So Alpha Coder definitely very interesting, improvement on previous Alpha Coder, and I think AlphaGo we all know was like one of the biggest breaks. There was like a Netflix documentary about AlphaGo and like all these people. So they're not like staying in place. So Google is trying to replace some coders with some alpha.
Something I wanted to mention on the alpha code is, I think it's not like as simple as brute forcing a bunch of different types of inferences or examples, but there's a lot of mechanisms I've heard of people at DeepMind and OpenAI already working on, specifically with tree search methods of being able to get more out of a model with, effectively scaling inference compute to get higher quality output rather than just increasing training compute. And I think it might be something along those lines, and kind of some smart tree search methods they're doing to derive a smarter answer. It seems like I was just kind of trying to search for some benchmarks right now. It doesn't seem like they're showing any, but Alex, you just brought up the demo where an interface was created on the fly.
Yep.
And you said it also wasn't shown on like the main landing page. And I think that might be because they're using alpha code, and they might be planning to implement alpha code into some of their, generative AI interface products similar to the GPTs that are available from OpenAI. So I think they're going to kind of have a competitor to that maybe. In the back end, it's actually using alpha code to like do all of that and automate interfaces and applications for customers.
Potentially. I want to get to Akshay, who has his hand up and is impatient. Akshay, welcome. What's your reaction to all this?
Greetings of the day, everyone. My name is Akshay, and I've been working as a data scientist for about the past 2 years. So I'm more on the implementation sides of AI rather than the development side. And I think everyone on stage slept on one of the important update that Gemini brings to Bard, and that is the internet access tech, because Bard had internet access for quite a while, but let's be honest, Word was pretty unusable before Gemini. But with this GPT 3.5 like model, that is Gemini Pro, I have been using Bard since yesterday, and I think it's pretty usable. Like, especially with all of the integration. For example, every response can now directly be imported into Gmail and Google Docs, and you can share, and you have this handy controller after every response where you're going to click to change the response to make it shorter, longer, make it more professional, stuff like that. So it's basically like a GPT 3.5, ChatGPT 3.5 with internet access for free, right? And this is one of the major development that I love with Bard. I think I'm going to use Bard now, because I was not using Bard anymore, at least in the past. But now I'm using it, and I think that is one of the major development that happened.
Actually, thank you, Akshay. Thank you for bringing this up. And I think... Yeah, go ahead, Nistan.
I just say Google still makes money. People still use Google. So in terms of overall impact, Bard might, even though we don't like it, have a lot of criticism, it might end up capturing the majority of the user base, just because people go on Google and they'll get some kind of Bard augmented answer. So there's that whole other side of this.
I like this way of looking at this. And thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Nistan. I like this way of looking at this because like Google has the option to put this new model of theirs in front of everybody's eyes, everybody's grandma who just like types something in the browser bar, in the address bar, and they put like Bard right there, right? And then they improve capabilities continuously. It's interesting to me that like they don't change the name; it's still Bard, and so people need to get used to this. Microsoft just recently changed theirs, Bing Chat, whatever, into Copilot, and now Copilot everywhere. But it's interesting to me that like how people will treat the fact that like we now have. I guess we have the same thing with ChatGPT. We have ChatGPT with 2 different models. We have Copilot that's going to get continuously improved. It's not like iPhone 14, 15. It's not like versions. We now will have all the big companies will have like a big AI thing that changes and gets like more better across time. And definitely the usability that Google can bring with the integration into their ecosystem. When you interact with ChatGPT, it can browse the web via Bing, but it cannot do anything in your inbox like necessarily. You have to go to Copilot for that. And then now you're starting looking, okay, well, where's my ecosystem? Is my ecosystem Gmail? So maybe, maybe Bard is, the Bard with Gemini Pro is like 3.5 level, but it has access, like Akshay said, to all my ecosystem. That could be interesting. The only thing that I tried real quick, and I tried it with Swyx's a small God mode, which shout out to Swyx. If you guys don't know what this is, it's a menu bar app that you can install. I think it's on GitHub. That opens an overlay on top of your Windows, and you can just like simultaneously send. I think you called it God mode because the God prompt, right? Like
yeah, there's a super prompt. It farms it out to all the other web apps, and the main distinction is that it's the full web app. It doesn't use any APIs.
Yeah,
because people only release their new models via web app. So you have to be able to automate every web app.
And the cool thing about this is like you type once, and what you guys did is types it into the individual windows that you see, so you can actually compare some stuff. It's pretty. It's great for like days like this when like Gemini gets released.
You want to test it out, and also like sometimes you just want to get a diversity of answers. Because you're not going to type in more than once your question, right? Like there just should be a super chat app that farms it out to all the AI APIs, or like just
there should be a God mode app for sure. And so my point was like, in days like this when you want to actually compare, I was sitting on the plane, I had Wi-Fi, Gemini just released, so like, oh, I need to catch up because I was offline for most of the week. I opened God mode and I typed like the same prompt. Hey, I'm on a plane. I left Denver. I don't remember if I gave it the number. I think I gave it like the number, and I asked it like, am I still in flight or no? Just like a logic question based on like, okay, I left Denver. This is the thing. Am I still in flight? Google, basically Gemini failed at answering this, which was kind of like Google should know based on Google flights. So the first thing that I got was like, here's a bunch of flights for me from Denver to San Francisco, which is like, I don't need one. I'm on the plane. So the logic, like, it failed a little bit. But then the interesting thing about like the internet access, ChatGPT actually went and found the flight information, which we know it sometimes fails. Like it tries to browse Bing and sometimes it fails with the right search. But that one actually was very surprising. It showed me, yes, if you're on this flight, it left Denver like this time and this time ago. So you should be like in the middle of a flight. You're flying on 30,000 feet right now. Like, he gave me some cool information. And Bard with Gemini, which I expected to also give it to me, I think they also show you kind of the 3 first attempts. You can like have a little drop down and you actually see like first attempt, second attempt, or third attempt at answers, because they want to collect like as much RLHF information as possible. All 3 of them failed. Like one of them could not even find something. And so the real-time access that I expect from Google wasn't really there. But hopefully this will improve. This is just like a quick test that I ran. I just wanted to shout out the God mode app.
Yeah. I mean, what that story tells me, honestly, is that you should be able to swap your search backend.
Mm-hmm.
And all these guys are bundling their search with their AI.
Yeah.
But actually, you just want good search. You want a diversity of search.
Kind of interesting, the real-time access that you're talking about. Like you're saying search, but real-time access is what we're actually after, right?
You didn't try Perplexity.
No.
But Perplexity recently released like an online LLM, which I think is a really interesting idea. Perplexity being a search engine, I think this melding of the AI with search makes a ton of sense, and it's a really smart idea. And they managed to find a paper that sort of substantiated like how that improves. I haven't read the paper myself, so I can't really claim anything about it. But I just think it's a really smart idea. But for users, like if you just like why should we use Bing with ChatGPT? Like we should use like GPT-4 with Google.
We should use what we use. Yes.
So part of something I'm working on for Small Talk, which is this my own chat app, which has been in the works for like forever, is swappable backends.
Okay.
Which I really I just like. I just want like a power user. Like ChatGPT has become more and more of like a dumb consumer thing, and it doesn't really serve the power user well. And so I feel like there's room for a power user tool.
Yeah, and there's actually a paper a month or 2 ago called Fresh LLMs.
Yes, that might be it.
And from what I've heard, Perplexity actually improved their system recently. Because in the Fresh LLMs paper I think it was co-authored by some OpenAI and DeepMind folks.
Oh.
And from what I've heard recently, the Fresh LLMs paper showed something that was an improvement over something that was beating Perplexity's method for their search system. But now apparently Perplexity has recently updated their system to something that beats that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, but I did not know that it was actually from OpenAI and DeepMind people.
I think it was at least one OpenAI author, and then I think at least 2 or 3 DeepMind authors.
Yeah, which means that they are probably also thinking about it, and they'll probably release something like that, which is great. Like, I hope there's something more fundamental inside of there than just like kind of tagging it into context. But I haven't read the paper.
Yeah, so. It's funny you were saying, or one of you were saying about, connect OpenAI or GPT-4 with Google, but they did kind of, already do their own attempt of browsing. They have the browsing feature, but I find Perplexity to be better a lot of times than both Google and ChatGPT's browsing feature, because, I mean, there's I don't know, certain problems with ChatGPT's browsing feature. You have the latency that you have to kind of wait for it to go, and it could take 10 or 20 seconds, it feels like sometimes. Perplexity is instant. It kind of is built from the ground up for this entire thing.
Yeah. I mean, my own thing is like, I will never have, like, search is a habitual thing. I'll never have Perplexity up until like I one day decide that Perplexity is going to be my main. So that's why like you have to build your own app to farm all these different APIs.
Maybe I'll do something on my computer that when I type google.com, it automatically redirects me to Perplexity.
You could do that, but like I'm just saying, like you want all three. You want Google, you want OpenAI, you want Perplexity. And like sometimes it will do better than others, sometimes you won't, and sometimes it regresses as well. Like I caught a regression in Bard a few months ago that was pretty concerning.
Well, so hopefully now,
Sean,
what's up?
I have a question for Sean. Can I use multiple Microsoft accounts on God mode?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how I use Bing. For example, by the way, I love Perplexity. It's actually, of all the companies, I think they're one of the few that actually know what they're doing on the infrastructure side and usability. But Bing search is still way ahead. I think it's like a bar to cross for most because they run simultaneous ones. There is hardly any latency. They've parallelized the searches and then they vectorize all the out as well. So the way I use Bing is I often have creative mode and precision mode, and I copy the other sources into the other and make them all search like 10, 15 searches at once.
Nice.
And then that's how I get. So if I could run like 3-4 accounts in God mode, that's how I would use it.
are we getting a God mode feature request? I
like,
love it.
Yeah. No, so this is a
searches
common request. Yeah, this is a common request. I so the way I did not expect. I did not anticipate that, so I haven't made it yet. It would require a minor rewrite. You're welcome to do it if you feel like coding. It's just JavaScript,
Yeah, GitHub.
It just requires a minor rewrite. I just haven't prioritized it yet, but yes, it's feasible. It's not possible in the app as it is today.
All right, folks. I wanna be mindful of time as well, and I wanna move on to. I think we've covered Gemini pretty depth. I think the last point you mentioned, I just want to briefly recap what you just said is that Google has the search and now it has the big AI. Obviously, OpenAI is partnering with Microsoft, and the Bing search is there. X is also making the play there because they have a real-time access to what happens on X, so they actually do have a search that's like real-time. And Perplexity, we talked about, they're kind of using a few as well. It does kind of look like the most usable AI is going to be something with real-time access, right? Like we just got this, we got Bing back a month ago.
You should be able to toggle it on and off.
Yes.
You should be able to toggle every feature on and off, and the fact that ChatGPT removed that toggle is concerning.
I think you can do it with a custom thing, but yeah. So
yeah,
but I agree with you. Like all AI should have real-time access to be actually
optional.
Helpful.
Yeah,
optional but helpful assistance. All right, folks. I think we're covered Gemini as well. I wanna slowly move us to the next kind of area in the big company models, and then we can talk about the open source meetup that we all went to and gonna have fun. So the thing that I saw that was quietly yesterday, but it probably suddenly is already on Twitter, is that if you guys remember when Claude 2 released, it came out with 100,000 tokens in the context window, and then briefly after Dev Day, where OpenAI said, "Hi, we have 128 context window now," they came out with actually no, we have 200. Right? So I love this cat and mouse from Anthropic.
I see.
Shout out Anthropic, by the way, who they now have a bigger they have to prove themselves in terms of multimodality, because everybody else is now multimodal and Anthropic is just text and maybe some functions. So we're hoping to see something from Anthropic in the multimodal area, hopefully soon. Anthropic, where are you? But they, when they released the 200,000 context window, a few folks started checking this with the needle in a haystack test and different other tests. I think Greg Crombrard, I can't pronounce his last name. He had a famous tweet, I think reached all of us basically, where if you use their huge context window, you may lose a bunch of things. I think we all reposted this. We talked about this on ThursdAI, and Anthropic actually came out with an answer to this yesterday. And
Skill issue.
And they're like, basically Steve Jobs did, where like you're holding it wrong or you're prompting it wrong.
Yeah, skill issue. Yeah.
When they said, thank you, Greg, for doing this work, which, by the way, they provided him with API credits and initial access to the model before all of us, right? So like they've been working with Greg before. And they basically said that, hey, with this one thing, you can improve the long context prompting from 27% to 98%. So I don't know. That's not super common in like the industry. Like with one thing, you improve something from 27 to 98. We know like chain of thought prompting. We know the React. We know all the like prompting techniques. None of them, I think, get you to that much.
Actually, Kojima et al. The Let's Think Step-by-Step paper improved from baseline. So baseline was, they had this benchmark that was 17%, improved it to like 78%. So it's not unheard of to add like 5 words, and then suddenly it does a lot better.
I heard this tweet, and I should probably find the source of it, where it's not only just prompting. The one thing that Anthropic with Claude allows you to do is to prepend the output of the model. So like in prompting, like you put the context and the tokens on the user. You can do the system thing and also the user thing, and then the model answers. In Anthropic and Claude, what they allow you to do is like basically it's kind of like like what Nistan was talking about, kind of like a forced generation, but you can kickstart the model.
This is how it always worked. It's actually that like, and OpenAI used to work this way, with DaVinci 03 models.
Yeah.
Like honestly, Cloud should never ever take this away, because this opens up so many opportunities to explore prompting techniques.
Yeah.
And OpenAI locked it down to the chat response.
To the chat responses, yeah.
So they should keep it. This is great.
Yeah. But I think OpenAI took this away when they the completion models stopped being the default ones, right? And we switched to the chat kind of back and forth interface. And Anthropic is a chat interface, but it's a kind of a different thing. And so just for folks in the audience, if you want to like get the 200K context window fully executed with 90% increase, 90% is almost like we've talked about long context before, and many people dismiss it as like, look at this, look at Greg's like research. Like, Greg just showed that like even if you send it, you still need drag, like all this. And now Anthropic came out and said, no, you can get like a 98% recollection of everything that we sent to it, to all the 200K tokens, by just prepending this prompt and prepending it not to your prompts as a user, but actually kind of the output of the Anthropic model, which I find super cool and like worth talking about. Luigi, go ahead.
Do you remember what that prompt is? Or like, is it just a single relatively short
thing? I think it was like, he is the most important thing in the context or something.
Yep, that was the prompt that they recommended to fix the Greg Comrade issue.
And from the beginning when I saw, hopefully I'm thinking about the same thing. It's like it's like a graph showing at different contexts like how well it's able to retrieve things.
Yep, correct. Bunch of greens, bunch of reds.
Yeah, I was fairly skeptical at that at first, because we've done some research, like at Nous, where we worked on, the Yarn 128K. And I've seen some experiments at least that seem to be, significantly more accurate than what was shown there. And then, of course, like, it'd be nice to think that open source is just, smoking OpenAI or something. But I think OpenAI is, probably doing long context pretty well. And then, and Claude to Anthropic, which, is made up of a lot of ex-OpenAI employees. But I think, if I remember right, I could be wrong, I think that benchmark actually is AI judged, which I think that's, a major flaw in a lot of things. Sometimes, maybe that's the most practical way to do certain things, but it kind of, hurts a lot of the reproducibility and a lot of the
You think AI judging is bad here?
In a lot of ways...
Why? What evidence do you have that?
Ideally, I think simply just from reproducibility and from bias that the judging model can have
towards its own results,
towards its own types of results, and towards results that's maybe like when you tell it to look at maybe a certain style that it's not used to or trained to, or so many different variables. Like
is this is something you tried at Nous and you concluded that it's not useful?
I've seen some things at least with, I know MT Bench and I believe Alpaca Eval are AI judged, and seen some things with that where it seems like things that at least a lot of human preference seems to agree. Let's say one model is better than the other, but MT bench will kind of seem like the opposite comparison is true. And it seems like it's biased towards the judge. Let's say it was one of the models was synthesized. One of the models was trained on GPT-4 synthesized data, and then you're using GPT-4 as a judge. Like it's more biased towards that style.
Yeah,
Does that make
and
sense?
you know, there's been papers that research different models judging other models.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a home bias, which is like if Claude judges Claude or GPT-4 judges GPT-4, it will rate itself higher. But if you have other models rate the others, it's better. It's more objective.
By the way, Alex, just want to let you know we could hear the typing a little bit.
I apologize. I think we're having some technical difficulties because I'm not on Wi-Fi as well. So as we're coming on to an hour that we're here, Swyx, we'll pause for just a brief second for folks. We'll put some music on. Could you help me connect with Wi-Fi? I think we're
connecting Wi-Fi. Okay.
One second, folks. I know about the audio issues. Apologies.
Wait, is that going to disconnect you?
I don't think so. I think it should be fine. Well, let's try it. Let's try it, folks. We're gonna try something, and worst case, you get like an hour.
You get rug pulled.
I would not recommend it. I would just keep it as this because when WebRTC switches to Wi-Fi, it has.
He's already on the Wi-Fi. He's hallucinating,
and it might just silent.
Not issue. No, he's already on the Wi-Fi.
So I was on Wi-Fi, so maybe the Wi-Fi was the issue, and I should not be on the Wi-Fi or something like this. People were kind of saying that we're getting cut out, and it sounds like maybe a cable issue or an audio issue. Hopefully, you guys can hear us better. I will say this: if you missed any parts of this, we will be posting this on ThursdAI, the podcast as well. We have local recording, backup audio in this awesome studio from latentspace, and so we should be good. If you missed any part of this, and you want to listen, we will be all right, folks. All right, we've covered multiple stuff. We've covered like Claude 2 and long context. I'm still a big believer in long context. Like I love the fact that like I'm able to shove as much as possible, and it's really really great to see that like the scare stuff about it's like, well, it loses context. That with a prompt you can get like to 98%. Now again, Anthropic came up with this. It's great that they did. They're reacting to the kind of the community and how like they're basically fixing the vibes, which is, we all know sometimes like we judge by vibes and how models perform. I'm excited to try out this specific thing, and I think the actual string is, here's the most relevant sentence in the context and colon, and then you prepend this to the output of the model, and then it gets you up to 98%, which is kind of crazy. And thank you actually for pinning this to the nest so you guys can see that improvement.
So I would just mention like this is good, but it's a bug. Right, like this is not AGI, right? Like you should not, your answer should not depend on 6 magic words, thrown in there, right? So hopefully they fix it, right? Like this is not something to celebrate in my mind. This is just like a temporary bug fix. Right.
And hopefully they don't fix it by in the back end adding that prefix and then just hiding it from the user. Hopefully they fix it.
They need like Claude 3 should just work no matter what you put in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's one thing. And then 2, long context wise, there's still other reasons to not prefer long context. One is cost. They charge you for the full context cost, right? Every API call, if you have 200K, is going to be what? I don't know, $2. And then the other thing is debuggability. If you got a result that you don't understand or don't agree with, like where in the 200K did it go wrong? You have no idea. So there's no sourcing. Which, by the way, GPT-4 Turbo has some kind of sourcing. GPT-4 Assistant API has sourcing, which a lot of people don't really talk about. But do you know what I mean by sourcing?
That it like tells you which parts of the document, like it took the
precise
the
link
from?
that is not
like references and citations, pretty much. Like
it gives an exact token.
Okay,
that's pretty cool. Anyway, so
it is pretty cool.
The other reasons to be like 200K is great, but like it's still not perfect yet.
It's still not perfect yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will fix this bug, as you said. Anthropic hopefully will come out with something like a multimodal as well. So we're waiting on Anthropic. I will say a few things that are interesting, like in the area of open source. As we kind of move to open source will have to catch up, and I think it's a good time for now to like switch to the open source stuff and kind of discuss where we went to. And so hopefully folks can hear us better now. I think I was jumping off and on Wi-Fi, and that's what was cutting out. And so, Nistan, confirm that you can hear us well, and hopefully we will move to the open source stuff.
Context to say, is that context?
is mainly for input. The output context is still pretty limited. Usually you'll just get less than 8K in output, even in the big GPT-4 128K, except sometimes when it's writing code. So while it's being trained in long context for input, it's not that well trained for outputting long context. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. So
The models are not very good at just outputting 100K.
yes, and then you have to keep reprinting. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, folks, let's move to open source and discuss open source. And I have a transition for us.
Wow.
Open source AI, let's get it started. All right, the reason why Swyx said wow is that I'm sitting in their studio and I've loaded their software with my custom like audio sounds and everything. So let's talk about open source, folks. The reason why we're here and the reason why at least I flew in here. And okay, let's talk about the event that we went through. So I'm actually going to ask Shrumanik. Hey, Shrumanik, who's sitting with us here. You're not based in San Francisco, unlike Swyx. Actually, Swyx, I think, is the only local here in the room. You're based in Germany, right? And why did you come here to San Francisco?
I know, like it's a long way. I had like 9 hours jet lag. It's like it's not good for your body, but like there were like multiple events in San Francisco. So like people, I know like San Francisco is so great people, and you come here, meet them on the events, and like you just come because you're going to events. Like there was like the A16Z event, we went yesterday, and I went to like a hackathon, and I forgot the name from
Tinker AI.
What was the name?
Yeah, we went to AI Tinker,
AI
A16Z event, a couple hackathons, and then last time you were here, you actually went to AI Engineer event with Swyx and some others, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you came through like a bunch of stuff for a whole week of like hackathoning and things. I don't think we mentioned ModCon, but like you went to ModCon as well?
ModCon.
Yes. So just let's maybe like talk about ModCon because we've been waiting on Mojo to actually like materialize and be this thing that like improves everything. Is there any like big announcement from ModCon that you remember? Because I haven't been able to follow.
So like they just released like 0.6 with traits. It's kind of a language feature. I cannot explain like what exactly it is, but like
it's like an abstract interface stolen from
like
Rust. So it's basically
mixins.
The main idea for Mojo is that it's Python and Rust having a baby. So they took Rust's biggest type feature, which is traits.
So it's like Mojo's slowly developing to like something you can actually use. I talked to some people, like we kind of waited for traits to like come, because like people need traits to like develop libraries in it, because they need like to build abstractions.
Yes.
And and I think like now people are actually starting to build like libraries in Mojo, and like maybe we get like a web server, maybe we get like some small TensorFlow PyTorch thing. But I also released like the Mojo engine, which is like
the inference engine that they're running their stuff on?
Yeah, and you can, it's like a Python package, but also a Mojo package, so you can build like models with it and like.
Oh, okay. That should be very, very cool, because like based on their metrics and based on the stuff that they showed us when they launched Mojo, the inference engine is where it's at. Like that's a bunch of performance boost. So you get a bunch of performance boost from the compilation, the fact that it's not like runtime, it's compiled language versus like Python, but also a bunch of the performances that they claim they haven't released it yet, which is their inference engine, which is kind of a PyTorchy thing. I assume, I'm not like fully understanding. So hopefully we'll follow up on some Mojo stuff and talk about them more in depth.
Yeah,
and
I would say like so they had me there to speak on a panel with Chris and Brian Catanzaro from NVIDIA, and then Damien from Facebook PyTorch. And it was very interesting to be on that panel with them, because technically if like Mojo does everything right, like they might eliminate PyTorch or replace PyTorch.
That's kind of the point, right? Like with their stuff.
And so that was like, I was kind of like a secondary moderator or whatever. So like the question I really wanted to ask was how is PyTorch threatened by Mojo? But I felt like that was too spicy.
So what do you think? do you think it should be?
I think if Mojo is a success, PyTorch will gradually fade away, but the API will be there. It'll be great.
I think they do like a lot of interesting background stuff. Like for example, if you implement models like Llama 2, you have like an attention layer, and the Mojo backend engine like automatically replaces that with flash attention, which is not a completely new thing. So like yesterday there was a presentation from Wing, which is building Axolotl, and it is also kind of doing the same thing. So it's like they didn't like invented that completely, but they do like a lot of optimization. So you write like a really tiny amount of code and have like kind of code which should be like 10,000 lines, but you write like 100 lines kind of. And it's
and
really
they showed like a
efficient.
side-by-side comparison on stage. Yeah, it was really compelling.
So what else out of this event, Swyx? I did not know you were there, so it's great to know. What else?
Speaker, man, I'm on the landing page.
I was out. I told you. I was like
we had a
fully-
podcast with Chris Latner, and like he really liked our podcast, so he just invited us to.
Awesome.
to
Shout out Chris
to
Latner, the
host.
GOAT.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then like my highlight was they hired some like breakdancers to open the show.
Whoa.
And like it was like Monday morning, a developer audience, and then there was these like funky breakdancers like getting down and doing the floor work on stage, and we couldn't see them, but like Chris was like just trying to get the audience riled up, so he started dancing with them, and like it was just the most like a very techie, like 1990s techie event,
Like Balmer developer,
like
developer stuff.
like trying to be cool, but like not really succeeding, but it's still charming, you know, like still like it's like
Chris is great,
he's making an effort, like that's great.
Yeah.
So like I think apart from that, like not like it was a very modular and Mojo focused event, but I really did feel like the feeling was in the air that this is a legitimate Python ++. The feeling that I had was really like you know, a lot of people are talking about like what happens after the transformer, what happens after after NVIDIA, and it seems like Mojo and Modular are positioned in such a way that no matter what GPT-5 is trained in, GPT-6 and beyond, like it will probably be built with something like Mojo and Modular. Because it is such an expressive language, like and they've like worked out the inference engine part of it as well, that you don't have any trade-offs on any level. Like it works on multiple hardware platforms, and you can do the standard flash attention stuff if you want, but if you want to be a bit more fancy with your algorithms, they still have sort of the Rust-like features that you can sort of drop down to implement like new algorithms if you feel like it. So I feel like it is just achieving its mission of being a Python superset that will be probably a better basis for a machine learning language than Python was. Python is accidentally a machine learning language, but this is something that's designed from the ground up to do that.
Listen, just before we get to you, just a quick thing. I overheard yesterday that people talked about the AMD release, because AMD came out with something about comparing their chips to like H200s and showing. I think all I saw is a screenshot of Lisa. I think Linda.
Lisa Su.
Lisa
Su
Su, sorry.
Bei.
Yeah. So Lisa on stage and showing about like the comparable to H200s kind of chips, and then people reacted as, yeah, but software is not that great. So potentially Mojo and whatever is coming because of
For ROCm. Okay. There's
Tell
other
me
compilation techniques. We also interviewed QT from what's his face, MLC. There's other compilation techniques. We also interviewed George Hotz, and who's also
He's
working
on
AMD stuff.
Tiny as well.
So I don't know. That's not a distinguishing feature. It is more about being able to write Python that can drop down seamlessly, and then you just like lift and shift existing code over. That is the really hard work.
For Mojo as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I was going towards like, hey folks, like this current future that we're living in now that's locked into the NVIDIA ecosystem is slowly kind of unraveling, because we see Google on TPUs and releasing their biggest models. We saw something from Intel, even though some folks yesterday were not impressed. They also trained like a bunch of stuff not on NVIDIA hardware, just recently with like a fork of Mistral that trained like custom hardware that they have. And Intel is like a long gone, but maybe they'll pull like a magic trick. We now hear that AMD is coming out with, we have a bunch of new inference stuff, like the inference from Mojo. We had MLX, which was very interesting. I want to briefly mention MLX before we go open source, because it's kind of related as well.
We talked about that at Modular event?
No, we haven't talked about MLX, which is like, I saw MLX and I would actually love to hear from folks who did go into MLX. MLX is, Apple is kind of the big company that's still behind in AI, and everybody says, hey, Siri's still stupid. Apple has a significant like open source efforts, and they're showing like little crumbs of what they do. And Apple is like notoriously said, and I think Chris Lattner, either on latentspace or on some other podcast, he said that he was at Apple when he developed Swift, and they worked on Swift for 4 years and nothing. Like nobody knew about anything. Even people at Apple didn't know that Swift is being developed, right? So Apple is notoriously like hiding things until they release them, and then when they release them it's like significant, but they have been dropping hints. And so a few hints that I remember from Apple was they improved stability diffusion, like inference with open source. They released like a stability diffusion, and this week's they released MLX, which is a significant improvement, I think, on inference, but I'm not sure if it's training as well related on the Apple kind of software, the silicon software, because specifically their neural chips, and we've talked about this on ThursdAI a couple times, their neural chips are this like a confusing thing, a mix of a GPU and a neural engine and a CPU, and they have like the mutual memory as well. So it's not like very standard, like a GPU is separate machine and you have to like to CUDA to run your PyTorch on top of. So Apple stuff is not that optimized usually, and we saw Georgi Gerganov and Ollama CPP actually do perform very well on MacBooks, and we're now able to run this. Ollama folks as well. And Apple released their own thing called MLX. I still haven't been able to play with this. But they're not releasing this just because. Like, Apple doesn't do stuff just because. And so we do see hints from them. So I do want to talk about MLX. I don't know if folks here had the chance to play with this. But yeah, Nistan, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty opinionated take on me. But I think MLX, Mojo, Llama CPP, and stuff should be what you do after you code in plain Python. And I am a big fan of Chris Lattner's past work. I am not a fan of this optimize everything behind the scenes and don't tell me what's going on. Or like what Shuminik was saying about, well, they use flash attention, but they didn't. I want complete control. So, for example, for deploying inference and stuff, I'm not using any Python at all. But for coding the model or for doing the work, PyTorch, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. You do the stuff in plain Python. You do all the work in plain Python. It's like, yeah, you can go down to Rust and stuff, but nobody's going to really do that. And then you start optimizing with Mojo and all this stuff. Like, I don't. For me, I find it extremely frustrating. Like, are they caching the different parts of the memory and then running the inference in parallel, like the LLM is doing? Are they doing the flash attention tricks? Like, what tricks exactly are you even doing in this thing? It just makes me feel like it's like the Vercel of development type of thing, and I am not a fan of it. So yeah, that's just my contrary opinion. But MLX will be good for inference, mainly because doing stuff on neural engine is a complete mess. You don't know if it's running in 8 or F16 or what precision it's running, or if it's going on a CPU or GPU. You don't have any control. So it's good that they released this framework, and people have already posted models for it.
So before we get to thanks, Nistan. Before we get to Umesh, just real quick, Apple also released with the M3 and M3 Maxes. They released like 3 new silicon chips recently, and they specifically talked about optimizing on their hardware. Something about, I don't remember like fully, but they talked about a specific approach for memory utilization, something like this. And in my head, like something like MLX, if it was being able to switch into from like Llama CPP or whatever runs models on my Macs. Apple's stuff will probably utilize the very hidden stuff behind the neural engine. All right, folks. So I think it's time to finally talk about the reason that I flew into San Francisco. So Shroom, you flew in for multiple events, and we talked about ModCon. We kind of sidestepped into ModCon, but yesterday we all. Some of us got packed into an Uber. Some of us got packed into a Waymo. My first ride. I'm gonna post about this like later. I finally got an invite. Yay! And we drove down to the A16Z office in San Francisco with many fine OpenAI open source. Not actually, there's some OpenAI folks as well. We're gonna mention.
One guy.
Yes, at least one guy. There may be some hidden folks as well, but at least one guy that we know. And we had this like awesome meetup about open source AI that was organized by Ollama. So shout out, I think Jeffrey and Michael, the folks who organized this, and organized by Nous Research. So shout out to Mozilla and Technium and Karan and like all the folks in News team. And I think there was like Alignment Labs as well. Folks were well represented. So Austin, aka Automata, is here as well in San Francisco and presented as well. And it was just a great event, folks. I really enjoyed it. I like the amount of talent and the Twitter folks that I met kind of keeps rising from every event. This is my third time in San Francisco. Swyx, I think I see you every time. I might as well join this Newton place that we're at and rent an office here. So let's talk about the event a little bit. So it wasn't like a big agenda. It was basically like, hey, open source is here. Let's meet. A16Z, we definitely know are big supporters of open source. So I guess LDJ, you wanna cover, because you were actually speaking about this. What kind of how behind the scenes of organization of this? Like how did this event came about from like your perspective, like sitting in a little bit in News, a little bit in Alignment Labs, and kind of training a bunch of open source models, which were also represented on stage yesterday.
Yeah, it was really
cool. Closer to the mic if it might.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. Got to talk to a lot of people that were, using, our work that we've been able to develop, and a lot of people that, have seen our models here and there, even if they didn't use it. But I think what was really cool is just all the different projects that were kind of announced. I know there's a couple of things along the lines of somebody was using RWKV, for example, or, in the Alignment Lab talk, RWKV was used for something kind of similar to AI Town. I think it was kind of integrated into AI Town. And having something like a really long context sequence of events happening in AI Town with a lot of different virtual agents interacting, while not having, that slowdown that you typically see with something like transformers. And just a lot of different cool applications like that, with cutting edge architectures going hand in hand with being able to unlock new applications like that in products. So, yeah, exciting.
That's really great. I saw quite a few folks. Swyx, I think you had a run-in with Senpai.
Senpai. No, I mean he. I think he was there before the event got started, and OpenAI had their annual holiday party yesterday. So a lot of people are in town for that, and so he was just on the way out, and he said hi to me. I was like, Senpai noticed me.
You're fangirling hard. So for folks in the audience who don't know who Swyx's Senpai is, we have several. I think Satya is one of your senpais.
Senpai,
You got to meet him recently.
Yeah, but obviously Andre is like
Andre
a
Karpathy,
legend.
yeah.
I've talked to him about coming on the podcast, and I like he's a listener, and at some point he will.
Awesome.
I just don't know when, but
so Andre Karpathy was there. I think Technium invited him, and I saw like a collaboration. He's definitely like watching what happens with open source. Obviously, he's releasing videos for people to get into the open source and learn how things are working. The infamous LLM kind of for busy people video from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and like that wasn't even like his full strength. He was just like it's just a casual chat for him on it.
Casual chat, and like it succeeded like, immensely. I really liked it, and I recommended viewing for everyone. Some of the other stuff that I saw was Jeremy Howard. I wasn't able to say hi. Jeremy Howard, like a big believer in open source, obviously.
Yeah, I caught up with him as well.
A great dude. I saw Simon, our mutual friend Simon Wilson here. Shout out Simon if you hear this. He then went to see a Warriors game, which was like also very important, I guess. And then Luigi, you tapped me on the shoulder like, hey, you should meet this guy. And so we met.
I think that happened a couple times for a couple different people.
Yeah. So do you remember who I'm talking to about, Lalo?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Laylo from Mistral AI. So it's somebody I've interacted with a few times before on Discord. And what's really funny is me and him were just grabbing some cucumber water at the event, some fancy water, and we kind of like bumped into each other, and neither of us were looking at our the name tags at first or anything, and we were just, oh, you're getting water too, and yeah, and we were talking for a good 1 or 2 minutes before I looked at his name tag, and we're like, oh, we talked to each other on Discord before, what's up? And then from there, yeah, we just kind of all
Yeah,
talked
everyone needs to
together.
put their Discord names
Yeah,
on the thing.
Absolutely. So Laylo from Mistral, and we had like a bunch of conversations. People came up after like we figured out, hey, this is a guy from Mistral. Most of the models that are better performing here are trained on like some of the stuff that you released, and like when's the next big stuff. So everybody like trying to prod Laylo.
I see.
It was really a great conversation. Like we got to hang out with them a bunch. I think Alpai, the guy from OpenChat, right? Alpai was there. So we got them connected as well. So like hopefully they obviously. And I think he told some stuff that he asked not to repeat like live, so that's fine. We'll obviously.
Well, there's certain things that I think what we for sure could say is on the website. It says still on the Mistral website that bigger models specifically are coming in the fall. Yeah. And he pretty much emphasized that's not a mistake. Pretty much, like that website is being honest.
The website is being honest, and bigger models is part of their like theory and the open source and everything. I will say I don't know how they measure fall in France, where I come from. Fall ends in November. December is already winter. So like
2024.
Yeah. So okay, but we're still waiting for some incredible stuff from Mistral, and they're obviously watching the community reaction. They see it. They're very impressed, and they want to like show they're big on open source as well, huge on open source. We saw the way they release their models, the way they take the positions in the kind of the EU AI stuff. Like Mistral was like well represented there. I've talked with Laylo about kind of the impressive show that France, specifically Paris, is showing in terms of like being the second place to AI after probably San Francisco, which is kind of impressive, right? The Meta Fair, and Yann LeCun is obviously French, and Fair is like based in Paris. DeepMind, I think, has a big office there. So one of the co-founders from Mistral came from DeepMind. The other two from Meta. Obviously, Hugging Face folks are French, right? So there's like a huge show from EU, specifically from France, and I was really surprised and delighted by this. So it's pretty cool to talk with Laylo as well. And they're watching the community. The community is probably gonna do some stuff as well. Who else did we run into this event? We've talked with. I saw Hugging Face huge stickers. I didn't meet any Hugging Face folks there. We saw obviously folks from Nous Research present. So Emozilla, the guy behind the Yarn paper, one of the co-founders of Nous, presented. And I think Swyx, you had a great tweet about like what they presented about the Forge. We wanted to chat with Emos, but like it looks like he's traveling today. So Nous Research is, if you guys remember that party from the infamous Grimes party after the Dev Day, Nous Research is partly the folks who organized that and this as well, and they're working on some stuff beyond just like training models, right, Luigi? So
and something I could talk about now that it's been talked about in the talk is that we have this thing called NewsForge and everything, and we actually already have what I would consider a pretty nice interface for mobile, where it's a mobile app. You can already use our 3 billion parameter multimodal model that can take in images and have a multi-turn conversation with you and have it all run locally, even on a non-pro iPhone. I don't think we have it actually working on iPhone yet, but it's at least working on Pixel currently. And then
is that the Obsidian model that you worked on?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
And then theoretically, it shouldn't be too difficult to get it up running on iPhone as well. Even if we don't use the neural engine, even just with the GPU power on the iPhone chip, and then just through MLC format, which is pretty well optimized to run on iPhone. Yeah.
MLC format. MLX not related to this.
No.
MLX is not related. Yeah.
TQ, the guy I talked about earlier.
Yeah. So we saw kind of introduction from this as well. We saw the first time, I think, a public like discussion about Forge as well, which is cool, and it's coming from Nous. I specifically love the kind of the agent approach in there as well, right? Like because nothing that I saw from Nous so far besides like, hey, here's a few cool models, and obviously we have Technium in the audience. Finally woke up. What's up, Technium? And like OpenERMES has been like making waves and like one of the best performing models. Obviously, we have to shout out Ollama, which is like a super simple way to download and run these models. I think somebody told me that they have Llama CPP kind of hidden behind the scenes, right?
Ollama is running on Llama CPP.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wrapper around it in Go. And it's like just a really, really, really easy interface. So you can pull models. They probably do it from Hugging Face. And it's kind of wrapping that technology into one really easy to use tool. And they have an API. So you can use it in LangChain or like do your own thing with it. Like.
And thanks, Shuminik. And I think Ollama is also like being used by other softwares as well. Like if it's installed on your computer, you don't have to like install. I don't think you have to install like requirements or different things like this. So the Ollama folks also showed something new, that they have like a multimodal vision thing coming. I think that they can drag some stuff. Generally, a great event. I really enjoyed the presentation, but there was like not the biggest part of it. So I think Shuminik, you mentioned this as well. You come to San Francisco, sometimes you fly for an event, and then you fly out, you barely get to meet people. You were lucky that you were able to like ride with Swyx on the Waymo last time, or like a cruise. One of the last cruise rides ever.
Yeah. RIP cruise.
And Swyx like AI engineer event was great because like at least I spent half of it not on talks, I spent half of it talking with people. And this was a meetup. It wasn't like a big like organized event. It was just a meetup. But the amount of conversation that people organized for, I thought was great. Like I met like a bunch of folks, and I really enjoyed it. So tell me, Swyx, I want to hear from you. Kind of, you live here. You go to these events often. Some of them you organize, a lot of them we organize. Tell me your vibes after like this open source event and the folks you saw there.
I think it's great. I told them they should do this every week.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, because like it's so nice to go to one event and then see like what like 5-6 different people are working on, and also I think the Andreessen Horowitz partners are they're very well informed and like good to talk to on just like what's going on in the ecosystem. I also didn't watch all the talks. I actually missed the Alignment Lab talk. I feel like I'm regretting missing that one. I was just there hanging out with Jeremy and just chatting more. He is, I think it's like not secret, but like, you know, it's not super well announced or anything that he's working on a company.
Oh, wow.
Let's talk to him about
this. Jeremy is Jeremy Howard from Fast AI, right?
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's
I think it's like semi-stealth or like, you know, something like that.
So it's pretty interesting. I would say like he can't say anything else about it, unfortunately. But that's why he's been doing more publicity recently compared to before.
Mm-hmm.
So what else was announced at the talks? Because I saw the news. There was like the desktop software. I thought that was pretty cool. And then there was the training pipeline. Was there anything else like kind of big or?
So the news announcement was about Forge. Forge has a way to like inference models. It I think also works with Ollama, if I'm not mistaken. You can pull stuff with Ollama, or was that a different UI?
I think that might have been like a different talk. But yeah.
And then Ollama talked about their kind of their chat with PDF stuff that they kind of announced, and like it's soon to completion. One of the Ollama guys talked about like a local chat with your documents model. Oh, I think that's what I'm confusing. Like that, if you're on Ollama as well, that like the chat itself could be based on different models as well. LDJ, you want to cover a little bit of the stuff that you talked about?
Ollama also announced multimodal support, which I thought was pretty neat.
Ollama also, that's right, with a drag and drop.
Yeah.
Which
drag an image into your terminal.
and I think we've seen this with Open Interpreter as well. And Killian has been on the podcast multiple. One our highest episode from last year was with Killian Lucas from Open Interpreter, and Killian also like Open Interpreter kind of does fairly similar things. You can drag a file into your terminal. And then it just like, just the terminal pastes the whole URL. So I really wasn't impressed. Like, I don't think that this is the way.
It's a fun trick, yeah.
It's a fun trick, but like I don't think that this is the way we're gonna use multimodal.
AGI
I want
has been
to
achieved.
I want to select an image and be able to run multimodal. So but they did announce integration that's coming soon with Ollama multimodal. LDJ, you want to cover a little bit about what you and Alignment talked, and also I think RWKV was with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Eugene from other
Eugene,
KV
yeah.
was also there.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about it a few minutes earlier in this podcast episode about how Eugene, who's one of the main RWKV people right now, he kind of showed off a little bit of kind of the AI town type of system, which people who aren't familiar with that, it's essentially having kind of a bunch of different agents in a little virtual world, like a video game, acting as different roles and controlled by AI, and with their actions and interactions controlled and followed by AI.
So the UI was released with A16Z open sourced it, right? Yeah.
So A16Z open sourced that, and we were pretty much showing that with that, RWKV can much more efficiently and much much longer context have an efficient conversation going, whereas transformers, it would start slowing down extremely. I think it's roughly every doubling in context length, it's about 4 times slower when you're scaling the context. That's quadratic scaling with transformers that you might hear about. Yeah.
So RWKV is a competing architecture that also runs LLMs?
Exactly, yeah. And right now the main downside of it is that it's just not competitive yet with the latest transformers. For example, the latest transformers are trained 7 billion parameters for over 2-3 trillion tokens, and then of course even larger parameter sizes than that. Right now the latest RWKV5 version, I believe, is only, I want to say 3B or 7B, and at most I want to say about 500 billion tokens it's trained on for that RWKV5 version. So it still needs a lot more training. Of course, it needs more compute sponsors to really get that going and to kind of kickstart that project more. Yeah.
So also Wing from Axolotl. XL is a software that I heard multiple people talk about. The folks from A16Z, folks from Clear, many people brought up Axolotl. Axolotl is used by you guys in opposite of the HF trainer, which is it's based on. So kind of funny, Ollama is based on Llama CPP. Axolotl is kind of on top of a wrapper on top of HF trainer. Axolotl is open source software that helps you guys fine tune models. Also, you can also train models from scratch, but I heard that that's not that great. So Wing from Axolotl also talked about some packing stuff. Could you briefly cover the packing stuff that he talked about?
Yeah, in short, usually you would have something called padding tokens in training. So let's say you really only have a conversation in your data set that's about 500 tokens long, and then one token is very roughly equivalent to one word, or 0.75 words, depends on different factors. And let's say it's about 500 tokens long. Well, if you want to train a model with examples up to 4,000 tokens long, then you usually, for all the ones shorter than that, you usually have to add a bunch of padding tokens so that every example fits technically a full 4,000. But what the packing does, or multi-pack does, is it allows the model to pretty much train where you fit a bunch of, let's say, 500 token examples in the same context during the training process. So effectively, you can kind of train through your whole data set faster in a way, more efficiently. There's some problem, or I wouldn't say problems, there's some theories that maybe it's not as effective as the regular unpacked form, but yeah, it's definitely faster training with on the same amount of real tokens, and yeah, it could have a lot of benefits down the road.
Wow, so basically stuffing the rest of the context, not the inference context that we usually talk about, right? Not how much you can send the model, but the context window while training on different sequences, just kind of using the unclaimed space, basically, just
exactly
run through your data set faster.
Yeah, and there's some extra stuff on top of that he does. I believe some attention masking things that gets a little bit more into complicated technical details with. But yeah, theoretically, I think there's been some talks that OpenAI is probably doing something similar in terms of at least using some basic packing methods during training. And I think there's actually some, things that maybe specifically suggested that in some prompt engineering experiments people did. But yeah, Swyx,
that was it.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. So definitely that I think I recorded that one as well. So I tried to like X live stream, and it was very interesting because like Technium afterwards asked me like, hey, how many people saw it? And as I was like live streaming, I saw like 5 people on the stream. But as X does, it doesn't show you like real time stuff. Like I think like 2,000 people like tuned into the stream before, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if I can trust the numbers, Swyx. Like sometimes we look back at our spaces like, oh, 20,000 people joined, but sometimes yeah. So people saw the stream. It's on my profile. So I recorded Yoko, who did like a pretty cool demo from A16Z. She had like Ollama pets or something like this, where like a
Tamagotchi.
Ollama-gachi, yeah.
Llama-gachi.
Ollama-gachi, where she kind of basically ran a Tamagotchi game based on Ollama. There was one dude that was building something cool with like a game engine that was talking about. I cannot remember honestly his name, so apologies for that. Corey.
I think it's Troy.
Troy. Yeah, Troy. And I couldn't hear it for some reason. So it was a bunch of quick cool events, but then afterwards it was just like a bunch of connections and a really, really great place. But definitely the stuff that was announced, I think I took videos of most of it, so it's on my profile. And shout out to Ollama team for organizing all this, and shout out to Swyx who let us stay in the in the latentspace studio, but now needs to leave. But let me just close the door with a sound. And I think you guys heard the door close, right? So I think that covers pretty much everything that we're here to talk about. The several things that I haven't covered yet that are interesting from this week is from AI art and diffusion. And I don't think there's like much to talk about, but basically, if you guys remember, we talked about the EMU AI art generator from Meta, and Meta has released a standalone standalone place to talk to generate that images. It's called imagine.meta.com. It's pretty cool. It's it's not DALL-E 3, but it like Meta is probably potentially thinking about open sourcing this, right? Meta is like big on open source, so this could be like a safety test before open sourcing. So imagine.meta.com, I think that's all we had. We also, if you guys remember Pika Labs from a few weeks ago or a week ago, they announced like this super cool trailer where everything was like super nicely generated. Just after Stable Diffusion video was released, Pika came out and said, hey, you know what, like the open source is cool, but here what we can actually do. And that trailer was like bonkers. Everybody was like reposting this trailer. So people started using Pika Labs, and I saw like a bunch of examples with Pika Labs as well. So that, not open source, but that's definitely coming. So I think that's all for today, folks. So let me just like briefly.
Wait.
Yes, go ahead.
We have one more. A big one. So
tell me.
There is a new non-transformer architecture that this might or might not blow up.
Mamba, right?
We'll see. Yeah, it's Mamba. So it's not transformer based. Uses some CNN stuff. I won't go too much into detail, but the strange thing is that it works, and it works pretty well. So we'll see where this goes, because it's in the example of RWKV. RWKV is pretty complicated in the way it works for people to experiment with, but this one is relatively more simple. And so Eric Hartford released one that you can try it out. Yesterday, while we were cooking, Pharrell got pretty obsessed with it and combined a whole bunch of layers into an 8B. And this even scales up to like 80B. So if people want to do the same thing and train it and see if we get much better results at scale, which it looks like we probably would, then they are welcome to. But yeah, there's a new non-transformer based architecture out, and it's working.
Wow.
And might be applicable for CPU inference as well. We'll see where it goes. Again, or it might just be another RWKV. It's just pretty good, but doesn't quite come up to par. We'll see. Anyway, there's models out for it. There's Frankenstein's out. It's pretty insane how quick.
What's Frankenstein? I think I saw Pharrell post about this. What's Frankenstein? Like, can you tell the audience?
So, also, this is very interesting. So, there is an 11B Frankenstein called ThursdAI merge, where they took a whole bunch of 11B fine tunes and they knitted together different layers from them. So some layers that were fine tuned, some layers that were not fine tuned. They went layer 1, layer 2. So for the folks in the audience, a neural network has like 35 layers in the case of Mistral. So they kind of knitted these together. And in that example, the 11B Mistral is actually really good. And they also made a Llama 70 Frankenstein, which is called Gorilla 120B. And that's also very good. And the interesting thing is that because they share a lot of the memory between the layers, they actually run pretty fast for like considering how much larger they are as models. But yeah, we have Pharrell here who just created. By the way, this model is raw, like it's still kind of very experimental, but it does run. So yeah, that's the other might be a huge breakthrough in the field.
All right, Pharrell, welcome to the stage. Tell me about this Frankenstein thing and what you were cooking and why you're so excited about Mamba. Pharrell, I don't know if you can unmute. Oh, there you are.
Oh, I'm on the stage. I didn't know. Yeah. So like we just like I just merged a bunch of these layers together in different like interleaved basically different layers together to create kind of this larger like deeper essentially Mamba model. It still needs a bit more training, but essentially it's basically like initialized with all of these weights that are already kind of trained in 2.8B. So right now we're training, and we've got basically a range of models from 5B, 8B, 13B, and 34B. And we're just gonna basically like take it, one size at a time, and see how it goes.
Let me ask
it's
potentially like a simple question, just for me to understand. Are you continuing fine-tuning things that were trained with transformers and then using Mamba in some like weird way to continue training them? It's like, what am I missing about Mamba? Because
So Mamba's completely trained from scratch.
Oh, all the models completely trained from scratch with
so
Mamba? Close to the mic.
So the model sizes for Mamba are really only, if I remember right, around 100 million parameters they released a model size to up to 3 billion parameters. So not a very big model still yet. But yeah, they're a completely different architecture, completely trained from scratch. And somebody who actually worked on it, it was co-authored by ThursdAI, who worked on flash attention and is kind of doing, I think he's a chief scientist currently still at Together AI. And it's not officially a Together AI project it seems, but he is one of the main authors on this Mamba project. And I believe that 3 billion, the largest model they released, the 3 billion parameter one, it is still only about, I want to say 300 billion total tokens. So of course that's a lot smaller than like the 1 trillion or 2 trillion tokens that was released for Llama 1 and Llama 2. So there's a long ways to go, before it's probably actually something that we can directly use as a replacement as Llama 1 or Llama 2, but not because of, any architecture being inferior, but simply because it's not trained enough yet.
Just money. Just like
exactly.
compute spend,
and I'm sure that Together in ThursdAI and others, will be able to hopefully get the funding and everything and compute to be able to train the larger versions. But right now, just if I was to give a quick summary from what I was reading, and there's some big numbers involved here, but ThursdAI has released some stuff like flash attention that claimed to get double the performance and training and speed up, and it did actually end up literally making all of our training runs like twice as fast and twice as cost efficient essentially. So he does have a track record for making big claims, but end up having this follow through. So here's the numbers roughly for Mamba from what I saw, and these are conservative numbers I'm about to give. It seems like at the beginning of conversations, it's at least twice as fast in throughput as transformers roughly, and that's like optimized transformers. And then
you're talking about inference stage?
I'm talking about training and inference, right?
Inference, okay.
Yeah. Roughly. So about twice as fast at the beginning of conversations. And then because of how context scaling works with transformers getting so slow at longer context, at 8K context, it seems like Mamba would be at least 4 times faster. Oh. And then when we're talking at around 64K context, it would be at least 100 or 200 times faster.
Whoa.
So
it gets faster the more...
Well, it's not that it... sorry, I'm saying faster compared to transformers because transformers slow down so much. Yeah. Like over 100 times slow down compared to the original at the beginning of the conversation by the time you get to 64K. But yeah, so
Yeah,
Mamba's much closer
the
to linear
difference is
scaling with that. Go on.
linear scaling and quadratic scaling. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was also interesting, just the other little detail that I'd like to summarize is apparently, so there's a transformer model that they were also able to directly compare against that was the same amount of parameters and same amount of tokens that was trained on the exact same data set as well, called Pythia. And according to that, there's still a few things that were maybe not exactly the same, like, hyperparameters and other technical details that Pythia might be inferior with. But it does seem like the Mamba model, trained on the same data set with the same amount of parameters, is acting more like the transformer model with almost double the amount of parameters. So essentially what I'm saying here is, with the same amount of tokens and same amount of parameters, it seems like Mamba is able to actually learn a lot more from that data and from that training compared to the transformers equivalent. So if that ends up panning out and scaling up, that's really exciting. And I mean, yeah, it just ends up meaning that we can even run better models on our phones and even faster and way better models on our laptops.
That's pretty much what we talk about here on ThursdAI a lot, right? No matter, so I was thinking about a new breakthrough. Transformers was obviously a huge breakthrough and helped these machines, learn everything computers come to light, and now we're in the age of LLMs because of Transformers, basically, right? So RWKV is one such thing that we've covered, right? And also Mamba, funny name but easy to remember, is very interesting approach. Thank you for bringing us to us, Farrell, Nistan, LDJ. Nistan, thank you for reminding me and bringing some AI news from this past week. So what are we to expect from kind of Mamba, and where should we follow along? Farrell, you have some kind of thoughts, and you're working on some things. Where should folks follow these developments? It's not yet kind of operational, Luigi, as you said, right? It works.
Well,
but
so
it
yeah,
plays
you
like
can
a
use it.
minstrel.
It's just not trained enough and for enough parameters really to have something really useful. But actually, I did talk with Karpathy about Mamba and also Lelio from Mistral. They both said they're both looking into it. They're both seems to think it's interesting. And when I brought it up to Karpathy, he was like, "Yeah, we looked at it." And when he said "we," it sounds like he's saying we sent in the Slack channel or something. So it seems like OpenAI, at least, of course, they looked at it or are kind
aware,
of investigating into that. So I think it's really
So
exciting.
that means
that
means it's new. That means it's new.
Yeah,
I mean, it might be better than what they have.
It just, they've talked before about, Sam Altman has talked before about how, they're always sharing with each other the latest papers in the Slack channels, for OpenAI. So, we know at least they're doing that. And it does seem like the Mistral people, not that they're guaranteed to come out with some new architecture in the near future, but it is exciting to hear. He was talking about how they, of course, are, staying updated with all the latest papers and research that is happening with latest architectures, and they are interested. So, yeah, I think the future looks exciting for 2024.
Very exciting, very exciting. Multimodality is going to be there, maybe potentially a Transformers replacer, and, Google stepping into the scene, hopefully releasing Gemini for us. And so, yeah, folks, I think we're coming to the end of... Actually, yeah, we have exactly 3 minutes left, so we're just on time. We're coming to the end of ThursdAI, and I wanna just shout out real quick that if you understood some of what we're talking about, but not all of it, Weights and Biases have a great course, LLM course that was together with, I forgot together with whom, but oh no, I know, Jonathan from Model? No, I'm sorry, I forgot. I need to prepare more. But we have a fine-tuning LLM course that's very extensive that I suggest, and definitely I'm going to take myself, and as I walk through it, I will learn together with you guys. I want to say huge thanks to Swyx as well that hosted us in this latentspace. Literally, it's so cool to sit with LDJ over here in front of me, Shumanik over here, Swyx just left, but also with headphones. But also we tried to, despite some technical difficulties, to bring you this ThursdAI digital and physical form together. It somewhat succeeded because I just heard LDJ talk with Nistan. Nistan's far away. Great shout out again to Ollama folks and news folks for organizing this event that brought like Luigi just said, I talked with Karpathy and Lelo from Mistral just yesterday, just as though it's a thing that happens, which I absolutely love. So shout out to Mistral folks. Definitely are expecting the long autumn, and they will be releasing bigger models this autumn based on their website only and nothing else that we know. Wink, wink. But yeah, definitely that's what he said. Like, I'm not inventing anything. He said, like, you know, the website is true. We're true to the website. And so I want to thank all of you to join ThursdAI every week. We've been here since GPT-4. We're continuing to bring you like the latest and greatest in open source AI and big companies AI, and we've talked a little bit about diffusion models as well. And shout out obviously to Weights and Biases, where I work right now as an AI evangelist, which is like very in tune with what you guys are hearing. And we're going to be in NeurIPS next week. So I'm actually flying to NeurIPS after I'm here in San Francisco. So if you're in NeurIPS, please come talk to us. We'll give you cool socks, which I don't have yet, and we'll have cool socks as well. So I'll definitely give you at least one pair. So if you're there to talk about this, I know there's like 15,000 people going to go there. I think
it's in New Orleans.
It's in New Orleans, yeah. So we'll definitely have a after hours special with Weights and Biases. So if you're there and you can't get in, text me or DM me. I'll try to get you in as well. And I think with that, it's time to finish on ThursdAI. I want to say hi, thank you as well to folks on stage, Nisten and Pharrell, and educated guest who was here, Umesh, and some other folks. A huge thanks for News for inviting me to this like a cool event. And I think we'll see you guys on the next one. And we're gonna go get lunch in San Francisco because I just got a text from a friend of mine. So with that, let's see if we can like play us out here. And if this works, then we're gonna be off. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.